Hello, everybody. I hope you can all see my screen and are ready to go. And just as excited as I am about the webinar we have today about VR using virtual reality in education. And I'm really excited about our upcoming presentations. So today, the schedule will look like something like this. First, I'll cover a few ground rules here about the webinar and how we're going to roll it. It's maybe a little more interactive than regularly. And also do a quick introduction of Futuclass. And then we have Schnoor from VEDX talking about VEDX and introducing us to our next speaker, Chris Nitty from Hoquiam Middle School. And after that exciting presentation, there'll be another interesting one by Katrin Soika from Gustav Adolf Gymnasium. She's a very respected chemistry teacher, to say the least. And finally, we'll have some questions and answers. So during this whole, during the webinar, we want you to post the questions anytime they come to you in chat, and we will present them and answer them in the end. And also, we actually are thinking of doing a little raffle here, or a riddle, if you will. We will pick the best questions, and we will grant an award in the end. And you may know what that is. It's actually a 3-month Futuclass subscription. So hopefully we'll get 3 great questions and we are able to share this. And yeah, I think that is really about all the ground rules. Please be active, think along, yeah. I think that's it. I'll now cover quickly what Futuclass is about. Maybe a quick video, and I'll talk over it. So Futuclass is one app, which is kind of a Netflix-like service to teach chemistry and physics to middle school students. So mainly just as they start learning chemistry and physics, the first couple of years. We cover currently, I think it's over 10 concepts in chemistry, and physics ones are upcoming. And basically the idea is to teach in a gamified but really engaging way the things that are quite complicated to teach otherwise. And the solution is meant to, and actually does really bring forth the excitement towards chemistry and sciences in general, and also makes kids really focused. So we're building out our education platform. And you see here some of the gameplay and some of the teachers' testimonials. Now, sorry, slides are not perfect. Neat. So we also have a web portal where you can manage it all, and we have lesson plans, materials, where it makes it really easy for teachers to give classes and do tests and things like that. We also have a resource center, which enables how to set up in general teaching with virtual reality, some of the checklists, maintaining devices, and so on. We also have a class feature, which means that at the same time, while students are using headset, you can synchronously or asynchronously organize a class. And this class means that it's like a session where you see everything that the students are doing. And that's us shortly. Now I'll give the word to Jay, and also the screen sharing privileges, hopefully. So thank you.
Thank you, Märt. That was great. I'm so excited to be here on this webinar today. We're a strategic partner of Futuclass. We include them in all of our classrooms, and I will show you what that means here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen over now. I believe that is now showing. Which screen are you seeing?
With your contact information.
Great. Okay, we're on the right screen. So I'm Jay Schnoor, co-founder and CEO of VEDX Solutions. Our company is dedicated to changing the way students learn in education with virtual reality. And if you scan that QR code, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I have about 5 minutes just to tell you just a little bit more about us. And so VEDX Solutions, our mission is to drive the global transformation of education with virtual reality. That means that we want to bring the material that we all had to listen to in lectures, which, by the way, when a student listens to a lecture, only retains anywhere between 5 and 15% of the content being lectured about in long-term memory. With virtual reality, that student retains up to 75% of that content because for a variety of reasons from the research. And the main one is free of distractions because the headset is fully engaging. The learning material is not being dumped at them. They're being engaged in the objectives, especially when, like, Futuclass has the curriculum and the assignments to go with the material. You're engaging that student and they're learning rather than just talking to them. And finally, the virtual reality component, when combined with other students in that classroom, brings them into a space they feel more comfortable in. They feel more comfortable asking questions as an avatar. They feel more comfortable talking with people they normally wouldn't have talked with in their daily class due to pre-biases, judgments, all of these things. And so I am a firm believer that virtual reality will completely transform the world of education, especially with distance learning, especially with schools that have large classes, overcrowded classes where these students can engage in the material. And so that leads me to the vision of VEDX. And that is every global secondary school has a VR media center in their library. And every distance learning program uses virtual reality to ensure the creation of life-ready graduates. We are entering a world of Generation Alpha. It is their world now, and they expect to engage with the world, with technology, with devices, and they can pick up a virtual reality headset and start learning about 3 times faster than the rest of us. And what you see now on the screen is what we have, what VEDX is, and that is the VEDX Classroom. We work with school districts, we will work with distance online programs, and we're building a protected classroom space with educational apps. And Futuclass is part of every one of our classrooms. And then if the school wants to engage further with a license for every student, then we work that into the classroom in the back end, but they at least all get to experience the demo and understand what's available in the classroom. In the VEDX Classroom, we have apps from the United Nations about climate change and sea level rise. We have the public domain theater, which is something we're producing as VEDX, and that is classic lectures, super fun. We have 360 college tours for the students to go look at the universities that are available for them. And really at the core of our apps at VEDX, for our own apps that we're creating with our development force, is the Workforce 360. When I said life-ready graduates, one of the things that we are committed to is making sure that when you hear you can do anything you want with this degree, you know actually what you want to do with that degree. And so this means job shadows, specific positions, and then being able to do some of those tasks in virtual reality. And then at the end of that shadow, seeing who's hiring, what training, and what degrees you're going to need to accomplish that task, to be a life-ready graduate. And this is all focused on Generation Alpha. The next one's coming up. And if you want to know more about that, just do a little Google search. A whole bunch of characteristics of Gen A that are based around technology and engaging with personalized learning. And at that, I will turn it over. I think I've taken my 5 minutes at VEDX Solutions, but I'm going to turn it over to Chris Nitty. Chris Nitty is a digital age coordinator. I love it. Amazing new title for Hoquiam School District number 28 in Washington. He is one of our school districts that has rolled out an amazing holodeck. I won't take his thunder. He's going to tell you about it, but he's using the VEDX Classroom and he's been an innovator, a pioneer, and just absolutely wonderful to work with. And I can't wait to see what comes out of the entire sort of pilot of the Holodeck. So, Chris, over to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Jay, and it really is an honor to be here with you and with Futuclass. I have to say that being in the position that we are as a small rural district in the state of Washington, in the United States, we have about 1,600 students in our district, and that's all going from kindergarten through 12th grade. And in my region, what I assessed when I first became a technology administrator and I taught in this district for a couple of years was that we had a lack of engagement. And our students were not very worldly in the sense that they did not get a lot of exposure. Many of our students have not even been to the nearest major city. We live in a small town in a rural area. And what I have found is that with the partnership from Jay and VEDX, we have been able to create something that is first in our state and really sets us apart in our entire nation, which is a 30-station VR classroom that I've called the Hoquiam Holodeck. For all of you Star Trek fans out there, you'll know exactly what I mean when I say a holodeck, because that fictional technology took people into other realities. And that is very much what the focus of Hoquiam's work in XR and VR education is very specifically in breaking down the unitary nature of reality. Because what we're looking at as we move into the future is students who will be spending their time not just in this space that we call or have always called unitary reality, which I call physicality. We're going to be moving them into other worlds. And as we look into the future and we see high risk and high cost applications and jobs requiring VR training, because that's the only way to properly train something on $100 million satellite that would break if you practiced your skills on it, we do it in VR instead. And so, knowing that that's the job market I'd like to prepare my students for, I want to give them exactly that kind of experience in their education. So, when they go into those high risk, high cost fields, they know what it is like to learn in VR. And I have to say this, our students, we all know, are digital natives. So, the question is, how long of a walk do you make your students take to get to a place where they are comfortable learning your curriculum? And what I have done is taken the walk to them by bringing them virtual reality. And really, when I do this, I think that the most important element of getting that engagement using VR is the actual sales work that you do with your staff and your students. How do you sell this crazy new idea and show that it's not just an add-on, but a thing that can work inside the curriculum? And this is why I love Futuclass so much, because Futuclass does not use VR to replicate the old sit and get. The idea of someone lecturing and students just sitting in an environment. What Futuclass does is it gives students interactive, gamified exercises. And those exercises are not like sitting in a classroom. They're much more like playing a game. And that's what my students love. So I just want to share a 2-minute experience. I've got a 2-minute video for you that shows me inside a classroom yesterday. We went to a 10th grade chemistry classroom that was just starting to learn about atomic concepts, just the structure of atoms, what they contain, what they're made of. And when we went into this class, we had 20 students. And what we did is we took 5 headsets in and gave 10 of the students a VR experience. And we're going to track the progress here and see if on the assessments, this work actually led to greater retention and greater engagement from these students. I can tell you the engagement was off the charts. But what I'm going to do is share my screen here in just a second and let you see what it looks like when I bring VR to a classroom. So I hope you enjoy this little video, and it's just 2 minutes long.
I am the Wizard N, and that's what you can call me when I'm wearing this robe and bringing you the magic of the Hoquiam Holodeck, which is something that we have here in Hoquiam, but no one else has. Not in the entire state of Washington. No, I'm serious, Gage. I mean, we have this, and the truth of it is that we're bringing you engaging and interactive elements of your curriculum inside the classroom. This is not a thing where you have to sign up for my esports program and show up after school. I'm gonna come to your classroom like this. I'm gonna show up in my robe, and every time you see me in this thing, you know, we're doing VR. Is a different reality. I know this is strange to think about, but this boxed space that we're in, you ever notice that we're always in boxes? Whether it's a room or a house, it's always a nice rectangular solid. This is the world of physicality. And it's called physicality, this reality, because it is governed by the laws of physics. Inside this headset, is the reality I'm in governed by physical laws? No, I can fly in this thing. I can do anything. I can become another person. I can go to another planet. Nothing applies to me. The rules of physicality do not apply inside virtuality.
And so thank you for watching that little video. As you can see, I am unafraid to put on a wizard's robe and say that the VR that I'm bringing to students is literal magic. I am unafraid to tell them we are literally traveling to other realities when we get inside a VR headset. And I want to tell you, I wanted to share some of the discussion that happened after the students had that experience, but their response was so raucous. They were so blown away. They were all talking over each other. It was hard to share because you couldn't even hear over the level of enthusiasm that this kind of technology creates. And that is what I am looking for, because for me, when you are a teacher in a classroom, if you are not at least as entertaining as TikTok or a Disney movie, I believe you are not succeeding. And the VR headset is like a cheat code for you. You can take this, you can bring your curriculum, bring your content, and put this in this sort of interactive interface for students and just watch their engagement take off, watch their retention take off, watch them ask you. Boy, you should see every time I'm in my robe and pushing my holodeck carts down the hall, they're like, is that for us? Dude, tell us you're coming to our room, because this is all they want to see. They want to see a different kind of education, and they want to see us reaching to them where they live in the digital space. And the level of engagement, the level of desire on the parts of students to learn in this structure is what has me working in VR as my main field. So we have huge things on the horizon. I'm going to tell you about one last little thing that we're doing at Hoquiam to really talk about why we're pioneering. And that is a class called the Hoquiam World Forge. And the Hoquiam World Forge is the first VR game development studio in a high school, we believe, in the world. That's right, I have 20 students who I call my agents, and yes, they have 00 numbers from 001 to 020, and these agents are currently in professional roles, from project lead to 2D artist, 3D modelers, engine programmers, and they are currently designing custom content for the Hoquiam Holodeck. So my teachers, my teams of teachers, my principals, my administration, they are requesting specific applications in VR that they know students will need help learning. And my other students in this class are developing apps in-house that are specifically made for the learning targets and the goals that my students are trying to achieve. And we believe that this is going to prepare these 20 agents for careers in the XR industry, which is massively growing and is extremely lucrative right now. And this is the kind of future I'd like to see for my students. So I am bringing them VR. And that's my story from the Hoquiam School District. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'm going to pass it back to our host.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Chris. It was very inspired, both what you do there and also how you present it. It's amazing. So now next up is Katrin Soika. She's one of the most renowned chemistry teachers in Estonia. Also has been using virtual reality for I don't know, 3 years now, 2 or 3 in her classes, and also she will tell you about her experience. And we are really grateful to also have occasionally worked with Katrin, and she's has quite a bit of input from the content creation side to make sure that Futuclass is all it can be in terms of its educational value. So take it away, Katrin. Thank you.
Thank you, Märt. It's so nice to be here. And actually, I'm a bit nervous because I haven't talked English for a long time. I hope that you can understand me easily. And as Märt said, I'm an ordinary chemistry teacher in Tallinn, Gustav Adolf Grammar School, but I also work in Tallinn University with young chemistry teachers. I have prepared some slides, and at first I would like to say why I like VR. Probably the problem is that I like all kinds of animations and simulations because it is so hard to understand what is going on in chemistry. As Chris said before, we need to visualize what is going on, otherwise it is hard to understand. And 3 years ago, before I hadn't seen Futuclass, actually I knew very few about VR. And when I first got the glasses, I was just that I would like to use those glasses and devices in my classes, but I didn't know how, because in our classes there are quite a lot of students. For example, I have about 36 students in one class, and so I had to understand how to use them at school, because there are so many questions, but not too many researches about how to use them in the best way. But before I decided to take them into my classroom, I read a bit, and of course I understood that VR should help me to avoid students' chemistry anxiety. That is very important when we want students to be able to learn anything. And we would like them to be active learners, because otherwise they wouldn't take any information. Of course, there are some problems when we're using VR equipment. I have understood that not all of my students would like to wear them at first. They're a bit afraid of that equipment, probably because they have had some a bit, how to say, bad, I can't remember the right word, but they hadn't have so good impact with VR before. And some of them are afraid that they're going to have headaches or something like that. And if I have 36 students in the classroom, how to take all of them to their work? Of course, we can make some groups. In our school, we have 11 pairs VR devices, and I have tried to make up some groups so that some of the students are learning with VR, and some of them are making some kind of exercises, or sometimes it is possible to build up your lesson so that some are in the VR and some are making some practical work. But then one day I thought, maybe I should try students to make work in small groups. For example, in a group there are 4 students and only 1 pair of VR devices. And I tried to thought about the worksheet or the aim. Why should I use that strategy? And I understood that it would help me to ask students to cooperate. It is very interesting to see if students are having one worksheet and they have to go and work together for the one aim or purpose. And they could change the device, and others have to answer some questions. And actually we have tried to make some research, but not the sample is not very big, because these researches have made in the ordinary lessons. Here are some pictures from individual learning. I have used individual learning when some students would like to get some more information. For example, in Estonia, there are some kind of chemistry Olympiads. I don't know if you have there such kind of competitions or not. Or some students maybe haven't understood the problems in ordinary lesson, then they can come later after lessons and play some games. But this is a picture from our pilot test. We wanted to know what kind of impact the VR devices can give into the lesson. Also, you can see that students have some kind of laptops, and they had such group works that they had to search for information and take some information from Futuclass module, and they had to answer to the research question they had on the worksheet. But same times, other students worked without VR devices, only with computers, and there was a video about the same game. Other group had the opportunity to play with VR devices, and while we were watching the students, it was so interesting that those students who had the VR devices in the group, they were communicating all of the time, communicating and asking questions. What is going on? Tell me what you are doing over there. And those who had the device, they had to explain, and it was so hard at first, but later it became easier and easier. But those who didn't have the device, they just talking a bit and made the worksheet. They had separated the works so that they didn't have to communicate, and that was very interesting for me. Later we tried to make so that we had real practical work, and in other lesson they tried to play the Futuclass app, and that was also very good experience. And we have make pairs or four people groups, try different possibilities. And you can see actually my classroom is full of my students, and there are 32, 36 students, and I have understood that for me it is very good way to engage students into the learnings. And it is interesting, you can see 9th grade, they finished our secondary school, now they're on the grammar school or gymnasium. And this year I asked them, what are your expectations for the chemistry lessons? And do you believe those who had learned with me say that we would like to learn with VR, please bring them to our lessons. But here are some crafts. I had 2 master students, and they made little researches. one of the students tried to research teachers who started with VR devices. And one of them tried to understand what kind of methods teachers are using in the lessons. Group work was the most used method, because probably the reason is that in Estonia we don't have classes for every student in the classroom, but of course individual and extracurricular lessons as well. But there are some problems, as I said before. For example, teachers also very often believe that they need some support staff, but it depends on the school. For example, in our school we have very good support stuff, and also our students have taught to help teachers, so that if teacher feels that he or she can't manage with some kind of device, even ordinary computer, students are coming and helping them, and it is very helpful. And some of the teachers say that they have so few time that they just can't use the VR. But the other master student made a question with her students and asked whether her students would like to use VR in the future, and what is their opinion. Did they learn from the game or not? As you can see, strongly agrees the blue one, and students decided that they like to use VR and they understood the information they came, and they thought that thanks for the VR device they have more interest in chemistry and they would like to use the app in the, or the Futuclass apps in the future, and they believed that others gained new knowledge as well. And here are some pre and post tests. These classes were, these are groups, and there were 7 members in that group, and there is such a model like salts, how to give names to the salts, and most of the students made after the lesson better results than before. And also there is another graph as well. But at the same time, I have thought that we need more such kind of researches, how students learn and what they would like to learn more. And here are some more examples. As I said, I like to make practical works and then use VR. One student to take our some lessons together. At first, we make practical work with hydrogen, and later, the second day, I brought the VR and we played in the group, and actually they were very happy about that. Okay, I believe that my time is ending now. Is it so, Märt?
We are not that strict. You're allowed to, take a few extra minutes. But I
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to.
But actually, I just would like to say that at first I was amazed what the VR is, and I promised to my students that I'm going to use them this year as well. Although they are in the grammar school, and most of the Futuclass modules have already used in our previous chemistry lessons. But now I say thank you.
Excellent. So now that we come to the end of our presentations, it would be a good time for Q&A. And I think it's scrolling through the feed here, I see most questions have actually been answered. So if I am missing it, please do type it again simply. I'd like to start with my own question then, just in case. And that is that, what do you think are the main blockers or bottlenecks in teachers adopting virtual reality in their classrooms nowadays? It may be Katrin or Chris, either of you feel free to take it, or anyone else, in fact.
Okay, I'll kick in. We've worked with a lot of schools, and some of the blockers, because this is a newer technology coming into the education system, some of the blockers, first is commitment and building it into a strategic plan. A lot of the schools want to try it out. They want to set their feet in the water, not sure if they want to do it, which is great. But I think a part of going forward is making sure that they are prepared to roll this out like any other type of technology and curriculum, even at a small level. So a lot of the pilots that we do, we encourage them to think long term with this technology, because this technology will be a part of their future curriculum and available resources in their library, etc. So along those lines and that technology is which headset to use, how do we get those all logged on, what's the privacy like, those types of questions, those barriers are all being addressed with the private blocked off space, the educator training that we help roll out. I think that was one of the questions, so I just wanted to answer that with that. And the hands-on support. We will meet a school wherever they're at. Some schools have just started and need all the stuff delivered and branded and put in their library, and so we work with them. And then some schools have 20 headsets and they're like, I don't know what apps to put on there, and then how do I make it safe for my students to explore around the apps without going off and doing other things and doing things that we don't want them to do in the headsets. And just like a phone and the Apple iClass, which many teachers are familiar with, the VEDX Classroom allows teachers to push and pull material immediately from a PC, to track the statistics and usage of the different headsets, see which headsets needs updating, see even up to the charge, what the charge is on the headset they can see from their PC on the VEDX Classroom. So the barriers are why we exist, which is getting the equipment in the hands, supporting the educator training, and supporting the safety and metrics for the students in the back end. And lastly, Märt, there was a question. This seems to be focused on, middle school, secondary. Of course, Futuclass, the app content is amazing and some of the best we've seen in the world for chemistry, which is why we partnered together. But there is content for university level students. There's content for foreign language learning, content for recruitment. We just work with each school to see which set of apps they want in there. So sorry, that was a longer answer, but
it was good and comprehensive answer. Chris and Katrin, anything you'd like to add?
I just think that teachers are afraid of new methods, and that is the most. It is so late. Words are not coming. That teachers are afraid, and so they just believe that they can't manage. And they should have code examples, and they should have the ability to try these devices before.
And I'll just add, I'll agree with Katrin that teachers can have some fear about coming into this new technology, which is why I talked so much in my brief segment about being a person. If you are the advocate for VR at your institution, you must be good at sales. There is a degree to which what you're trying to do is convince people, like this chemistry teacher who I worked with. He still keeps a CRT TV in his room, one of the old school cathode ray tube ones, so he can pull out a big magnet and warp that electron beam and show the kids practically this stuff. So he's not used to VR. He's not expecting VR. So doing that work of forming the relationship with the teacher and then demonstrating to them, hey, look at how good this content is first, will pave the way to getting into that classroom with the technology. And then seeing, once the teacher sees how engaged these students are, how fascinated they are by something like Futuclass, then it begins to sell itself. But that initial hurdle is definitely a pain point, and it's something we all have to work on if we're going to try to get this to be our new reality.
Great, thank you. So yeah, just I'll go down the list here. Is there any way for teachers to see what students are doing in VR? So I can answer that on Futuclass's behalf. We have a way to play the classes on the web, so you can follow along on your mobile phone or in the browser, and you can get a text update of what all the students are doing. For different reasons, the Wi-Fi doesn't quite support the video streaming yet. You know, where you see all the different thumbnails acting together, but technically it should also be possible someday. Maybe Jay, if you'd like to add from your side.
Yes, there's a couple of ways, and it also depends on the headset you're using. So overall, the general answer is yes. With the VEDX Classroom management software on there, you can then see what each headset is up to and which app they are in. Now, if you needed to help a student specifically with an activity, that headset can then cast to one of their Chromebooks. And so then you as the teacher walking around the class, and you had a classroom of 25 people, could literally see on each Chromebook if the student was casting to the Chromebook. Now, there's some benefits to the teacher that, but then it takes away a little bit from the experience of the student. And that is because that casting can have some interruptive things happen during the lesson. What you really want the student to do is complete the lesson. And so with one of the content creators that are on here too, what you can do is have a form come up oftentimes to make sure that the lesson is completed, or they answer some other questions too, outside of Futuclass if you're doing some other things. And Märt, remind me in there, at the completion of each of those lessons, does the teacher get a notification from the ID?
They currently just there is like a class web page which refreshes all the time, and you get the status of each headset, and if the student completed or not. You don't get a phone notification yet, but that is coming in future for sure. Great. So there's actually a host of questions which kind of address the practical sides. I don't know, Jay, if you want to take them. Or maybe
if you're going down them, maybe just as a panel, we can kind of take shots at them. So
educator training, I believe, is the next one. Cornerstone.
Yeah. So since this technology is so new, what we found is educators just benefit from the very basic training, like what is VR, what's out there, what is all of this about the metaverse, how do I teach in it, and how do I write curriculum for it, and how do I fit it into my current curriculum? Right? This isn't a replacement. And this is what I tell teachers. This is a new window to engage with material. So you can teach the same curriculum material you have, but instead of sending a student to a physical lab, send them into VR on Thursdays to learn some concept that you had that exists as content in VR. So that can be a part of your curriculum. Or like Chris's very ambitious curriculum writing project, which is let's write curriculum, specific around some of these areas in VR. So as far as the educator training goes, we cover all of that. There's a 1 day, a 2 day, and a 3 day training, and then there's an in-person one that we can come out and work with schools on.
Yeah, great. On Futuclass's part, we have Resource Center in our teacher portal, so you can basically get kind of the video training from there. All right, Google Classroom. Do we have any integrations? Futuclass currently does not. I don't know, Jay.
No, Google Classrooms has a very set of walled material. I think we're going to see a lot of crossover. I think, and this is speculation, this is opinion at this point. I think we're going to see Apple with its own sort of walled off garden of things. You're going to see Google Classroom and their sort of walled off apps that they have. And where we have tried to make a difference is whether you're going with the Pico or Quest, we can meet you there. Whether you want this set of apps or that set of apps, we're trying to really create an experience that is as open as possible for teachers to work from. Google Classroom actually has their own VR headset, Google Class, or Class VR, not Google. It's called Class VR. Works with Google Apps only, and I know that they do have a lot of younger type curriculum and content, but we don't work with Class VR because it's its own thing. So we'll see what happens in the future. We'll see what type of integrations, APIs come out. I would love to see this stay open, kind of open source. You know, there's licensing, cloud-based licensing, but open source in the fact that you can grab all of this different content and bring it in to this space for your students, which is so important.
Great. Then we have a question about apps that VR integrates with. I believe that means what content is available on virtual reality, if I understand it correctly. If not, please correct. I can point on Futuclass website, we have a blog post with a number of apps that we think are good. And of course, you can browse the VEDX page, which has some of the greatest SIGSTAF content available for education. If maybe something to add there, Jay.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that question. How to answer that?
I guess it maybe means the general integration with the other, educational software. I think a lot of these CRM integrations are coming still, or like the
LMS integration. So
LMS.
And with budgets, like I said, we have a development team too. Not only do we partner and have this classroom built that we work with a lot of specific apps because we don't want to recreate their wheels. We also have a development team. So if there is something specific, like an LMS integration API that you wanted to tie into one of our partner apps, we can work with you to try to design something for that. There is not a single LMS integration for all of these apps at this point. I think it's great to keep an eye out in the future for that. There is the ability, I saw another question around that too. There is the ability to train teachers on how to create no-code VR content in a very specific app so that once it's created, the teacher could actually attend their own class with the students and pause it in VR to answer questions, which takes a lot of burden off the teacher for actually teaching, but actually just facilitating in a class. And I think that it's a super innovative platform.
And I'd like to continue with that. I was noticing this next question about considerations with equipment management and such. When we're talking about how these devices are, I have to say that there is a degree of ruggedness that's built into pretty much any VR headset that you're going to get because there's an expectation that it's going to be used. But in our class pack that we got from VEDX, I have to say, our headsets arrived in a UVC sanitizer cart that has the UVC bulbs in it. So literally, we turn that on a sanitization cycle that lasts about an hour and a half, and that makes sure that pretty much everything, sunlight is the best disinfectant, is gone from them. Of course, VEDX supplied us with isopropyl wipes. We were very well set up for pretty much every situation in terms of cleanliness, structuring the headsets, having a proper carrying case to keep them in, and then it's simple classroom management from there. When you're in your classroom, you work with your students, you explain the hardware, and you will find that most of them really do understand things like putting on the lanyards for their wrists so that the controllers don't get dropped. And we find that it's extremely useful in a practical sense. And this deals also with the question of, do all the students have a headset? We find that our implementations work best, say if we have a class of 20 students, to have 10 VR headsets and to ask the other 10 students to be their VR buddies. to stand with them and help them not run into objects while they're in the VR space. And then this also, they get engaged together while they're watching a screencast of what the other person's doing. You hear the conversations, and beyond that, then it adds that level of safety and even more engagement. Then the other students switch off to the other student, and you get the same thing vice versa. So there's a lot of considerations put in place for the safety of the devices and the safety of students while they're in VR.
Yeah, and I want to just add one more piece to that. And we've talked a lot about the physical use inside of a school from school-owned headsets, but there are cases where schools included as a, especially on the private school level, included as a textbook lab fee, where that's part of what the students expected to have in their materials, and then that's their headset, and then they can access the apps that they're licensed on to the school. Additionally to that, they have their own private campus where they can all come in and have recreational time together, clubs, recreational games that are safe for kids, and not worry about being bothered by the public or having anybody else come into that .edu campus that they are licensed on. And so if you think of a distance learning program, which I'm still waiting for all the distance learning programs to catch on here, one of the problems with distance learning is that you have an awkward Zoom for a class, and you have a lot of asynchronous content that you have to consume at home. And with VR and distance learning, all of a sudden, you have recreated a physical space, you've brought back social and emotional connection and recreational campus, and you have content material for them to consume together, rather than in this very strange distance learning way that has been the standard for the last 15 years.
Yeah, that's a great point. Also quickly drop in that Futuclass also has group exactly in the same way that you, Chris, were talking about. There's a shared lesson plan, so you can exactly in the format you can give a class that you have, let's say, headsets for half the students and the other half are like buddies, or you can even have small teams. That's a great way to learn. And I believe it's from Katrin's lesson that she mentioned that in the old days, it used to be that it's a great lesson when everybody's quiet and following. Nowadays, it's a great lesson where everybody's super loud and discussing stuff and really engaging. So that's one great comment. Okay, I think we're coming up to a full hour mark here. I wanted to maybe take the last question, which was about creating content. So basically, it's the cornerstone knowledge question: does educator training include any training or actually creating VR worlds or apps? That she works with alternative education schools, and you can see what's there. And one-on-one tutoring, and often you would need to make individualized games or activities to engage students. Who would like to reply to that one?
I mean, I could say that, as Jay mentioned, he was talking about a particular platform, I believe Engage, which allows you to create these kinds of lessons literally with no code. This is something where you are in VR and you have in your hand a tablet that lets you do things like recording your voice and movements and objects that are spawned into the world. All of this is controllable as a teacher through a user interface rather than code. And that's just one example. And what we do is a lot of these apps do have flexibility for altering the environment that the student experiences their VR class in. And so we do have a lot of flexibility for providing different experiences for different students. And of course, with my program, where we're teaching students to design actual apps, that goes a step further, but we're kind of a proof of concept that this is possible, that not only teachers, but students can learn how to create content in VR. This is not the giant hill to climb that it might seem.
Yeah, I think it also, I know from this general app ecosystem, there's a number of kind of apps that are trying to practice, and obviously Meta itself as well, with Horizon Worlds. But it'll be, I think, really great and easy to create all kinds of things in near future and in virtual reality. And that's one of the really exciting things too, that will also benefit education greatly. Okay, I just wanted to say thank everybody very, very much for attending today. if you want to check out the Futuclass on VEDX, the website link is up there. I'm sure you can just easily find it on Google as well. A little raffle. So these three people contributed greatly to the conversation today. So congratulations. You are awarded a 3 months Futuclass subscription. Please do get in touch. So David, Victor, and Cornerstone, if that could be your first name. And please, with any questions, just write us, or maybe Jay, you'd like to put up your contact info once more to kind of let know where people can reach you.
I just put it in the email myself.
Okay.
Or put the email in the chat myself. Sorry.
Okay, sounds good.
And Märt, in the follow-up to the webinar response, I did promise that we would have some research links that we will pop over to you after this webinar to ensure that the participants can see some of that research around long-term memory retention, VR, and engagement.
Excellent. Lovely. So thanks very much, everyone. It was a great and very informative, inspiring hour, and we'll see you in virtual reality.
Thank you, Märt.
Right.
And by the way, anybody that wants to join us and reaches out to us, this corporate headquarters behind me is a real place in virtual reality that we can have another group discussion. And Futuclass has its own space in the Infiniverse City too, that you can meet them in and talk more in virtual reality if any of you have headsets. Free app. Okay.
Excellent. Real place in virtual reality. That's exactly. Thank you so much, and have a great day or evening. Bye-bye.